Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. If you're a modern professional, you've definitely heard of the Employee Net Promoter Score, eNPS. But knowing the score, well, that's kind of the easy part. Today, we are doing a strategic deep dive into how you actually apply eNPS. We're going way beyond the simple definition and into how the world's most efficient organizations use this one metric as a practical roadmap for change.
And that's really our mission today. I mean, in this labor market where retention and engagement are these constant expensive battles, eNPS isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's an essential diagnostic tool. It's like a near real-time signal of how your workforce is feeling.
An early warning light.
Exactly, an early warning light for your culture. It lets you act surgically before small problems turn into huge performance or attrition issues.
So we're framing this deep dive not around the what, but the how and the why. We're looking at that 80% of organizations that calculate the number perfectly, but then nothing happens. They completely fail at the action phase. So let's start with the basics, just for structure, but pivot to strategy fast. The core concept, it all hinges on a single 0 to 10 question and some very simple math.
That simplicity is its strategic genius, really. If you're running this survey, the standard question you must use, and you have to keep it consistent, is, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend working at this company to a friend or colleague? Keeping that wording and that 0 to 10 scale locked down is just crucial for getting data you can actually compare over time.
And the power is in how that scale forces people into three really distinct buckets. It almost artificially intensifies the signal.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through those groups and critically tell us why we ignore one of them in a final score?
Absolutely. The three groups are key. First, you have the promoters. They're the ones who score a 9 or a 10. These are your true advocates, loyal, satisfied, and they're often your best source for referrals. Second, you have the detractors. They score anywhere from a 0 all the way up to a 6.
It's a huge range.
It is, and it's designed that way on purpose. It captures anyone signaling a real lack of trust or enthusiasm. This group flags your most urgent problems.
Okay, then you have that third group, the passives, who score a 7 or an 8. So if they're happy enough to give a 7 or an 8, why do we just throw them out of the final calculation?
That is a great question, and strategically, we exclude them precisely to create that sharper signal you were talking about. Passives are, they're satisfied, but they're not enthusiastic. They are very easily lured away by a slightly better opportunity. So by excluding them, the eNPS formula forces leaders to deal with the extremes, boosting your advocates and fixing the urgent risks from your detractors. You don't get stuck just trying to please that quiet middle ground.
That makes so much sense. It creates a higher contrast. So the final score, ranging from aiming at 100 to plus 100, is just the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors. So for clarity, if 60% of our people were promoters and, say, 15% were detractors, our score is 45. Simple, clear, powerful.
It is, and it's important to connect this to the customer NPS. The math is the same, but the benefit is twofold. When you get your staff to become promoters, they can't help but deliver a better customer experience. So eNPS is a signal of your internal culture health and your external service quality.
And to get the most out of that metric, you can't just rely on the number. The source material we're looking at really stresses survey design, especially speed. It has to be fast.
It has to be. A 1 to 2 minute completion time is essential. You do that to boost response rates and just avoid survey fatigue. Nobody wants to fill out a 30-minute survey.
Yeah.
And this is where the real gold is. You have to pair that numeric score with a single open-ended follow-up. Asking something like, what's the primary reason for your score, is vital. The eNPS number tells you what happened. The comments, the qualitative data, that's what tells you why it happened. You need both to act.
Okay, let's put this score into some context, because a raw number on its own means nothing without benchmarks. What should we be thinking here? Is the goal a perfect 100?
A score above 0 is really just the baseline. It just means you have more advocates than critics. Generally, practitioners consider a score of, say, 10 to 30 to be good. 50 to 70 is excellent. And anything getting up over 80 is genuinely exceptional. That signals really high levels of trust. But a negative score, that's a serious risk. That's something that needs immediate, targeted intervention.
And benchmarks can be helpful, but they can also be kind of misleading. What's the current landscape looking like in the U.S. in late 2024?
The overall average is sitting somewhere in the mid to high teens. Q3 2024 figures put it around 27, but the variation is huge. You look at different sectors. Tech is usually strong, around 28, but surprisingly, hospitality is also high, often around 30.
Wait, hold on. Hospitality. That industry is famous for high churn often really challenging working conditions. How can their eNPS be so high? Is that score really reflecting quality of life, or is something else going on?
That is a fantastic and critical challenge to the metric. In sectors with a high physical team presence like hospitality or field services, that high score often reflects the immediate team culture. It's about the relationship with the site manager, not the big corporate strategy or the pay package. And that contrast is exactly why you can't just blindly trust a single number.
Ah, so if the overall score is high but your turnover is also high, that's signaling a huge disconnect between good local management and systemic issues like pay or career paths.
Precisely. And company size adds another layer. Smaller companies, so under 250 employees, they often average much higher, around 30. It's just easier to maintain a tight culture. But then you have the really large companies, 5,000 plus employees, and they often sit down in the single digits, averaging about 9. And that's just because of scale, bureaucracy, and just the massive variation in employee experience.
Which brings us to what feels like the biggest strategic insight here. The trend beats the target. You shouldn't panic if your eNPS is 25 and the industry average is 28. If you were at 15 last quarter and you're 25 today, that improvement shows real momentum, right? It doesn't matter what your competitors are doing.
Absolutely. The focus should always be on being better than last time. Getting leadership aligned on that so they don't panic over a 1-point dip is key to staying focused on internal progress.
But even that internal trend can still hide crucial patterns. For professionals who want to be truly strategic, the real power of eNPS is only unlocked through one thing: segmentation.
Correct. You have to slice the results. A raw score of 40 might feel great. We worked with one company. They were ecstatic with a 40 until we segmented it. We found that the corporate headquarters staff was scoring a 70, but their crucial field service team, the people interacting with customers every single day, was scoring negative 15.
Wow. That immediately changes everything. It tells you exactly where to focus your time and your budget.
It forces that surgical application of resources. You have to slice by team, by tenure, location, role. You have to find those pockets of excellence. And just as important, pinpoint the exact pain points driving people to be detractors.
And that detailed segmentation, it relies completely on getting honest feedback. Which brings us to anonymity. People have to trust the process, especially if they're a detractor. How do you make sure that trust is there?
Anonymity is completely non-negotiable. You have to enforce clear reporting guardrails, like minimum group sizes before you publish results. So if a team has fewer than, say, 5 or 10 respondents, you just don't publish that score on its own. It protects trust, you get honest feedback, and it dramatically improves participation next time.
Okay, so now we get to the most critical part, and the part where so many companies fail: moving from insight to impact. The goal isn't the score, it's the plan you build because of the score. What does good action planning look like?
It looks like ownership. The key is co-creating action plans with the managers and the teams themselves. You can't just drop a 50-page report on a manager's desk and expect change. You have to invite those local leaders and their teams to workshop the solutions based on their segmented results. They know their challenges best.
The source material also talks about sprint-style actions. That sounds a little like jargon. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means small, realistic, 60-day goals that build momentum fast. So instead of a vague goal like improve communication, you define a sprint. For example, Manager X will hold 5 one-on-one career discussions with their direct reports this month and record the next steps. These small, focused actions build trust way faster than some huge program that promises the world and delivers nothing.
That distinction is so powerful, and the visibility of that progress, that links right into closing the loop, which the source material calls absolutely vital.
It is non-negotiable for credibility. It's a 3-step communication process. First, you communicate what you heard, show people you listened. Second, communicate what you will do, that short list of targeted sprints. And third, you provide updates on the progress. When employees see their feedback turn into visible action again and again, loyalty and future response rates just soar.
So if an organization is ready to commit to this, where should they focus their energy for the biggest payoff? Let's dig into those 4 proven strategic levers for improvement.
Right. These 4 areas are where you get the most bang for your buck. The first lever is foundational: culture and leadership. Improvement here is driven by transparency, clear priorities from the top, and just making two-way trust a habit. If leadership seems distant or changes strategy every week, eNPS just plummets.
What's a non-obvious mistake companies make here?
Recognition. So many organizations launch these big top-down recognition programs that just feel forced and inauthentic. And the data shows this can actually decrease eNPS scores.
Really?
Yeah, because it feels like an empty gesture. The most effective recognition is simple peer-to-peer shout-outs and genuine local appreciation from a manager. That has a way higher ROI on trust.
That is a fantastic insight. Okay, so if we've addressed trust through leadership, what's the second lever that helps move those passives into the promoter camp?
That would be career growth, learning, and development. This is often the key for those passives. They aren't unhappy, but they don't see a clear future. So this means you have to create clear career paths, offer mentorship, and fund short, relevant learning sprints that are tied to performance. It boosts their sense of opportunity and loyalty.
And the third one often comes down to daily quality of life, which is so critical for preventing burnout.
That's recognition, rewards, and work-life balance. This is where you introduce practical things like genuinely flexible schedules, hybrid work models, and workload checks to mitigate burnout. These actions give you an immediate lift in satisfaction.
Okay, so we've got culture, growth, balance. The fourth lever feels like the foundation for everything else.
It is. It's compensation and benefits. Organizations have to review pay and benefits annually to make sure they're competitive and fair. And you have to pair that with perks that support modern needs, like robust mental health support or subsidized childcare. Getting the financial foundation right just strengthens retention across the board.
This all suggests a continuous rhythm is needed. You can't just run these surveys once a year like in the old days, right? What's the best cadence?
Annual is way too slow. You miss too many critical trends. The ideal is a mix. Quarterly checks give you fresher signals and a steady rhythm. Biannual surveys can work if the organization is stable, but the most valuable are milestone-triggered pulses. Run them right after a big reorg, major policy update, or a leadership change to capture timely sentiment about a specific event.
So if you're the learner listening to this, what is the one takeaway to bring back to your team?
It's that the eNPS process is a practical roadmap for organizational health, but only if you use it that way. Treat the score as an alert signal, then immediately jump into the segmented comments to design those surgical sprint-style solutions.
And focus intensely on closing that loop. Make sure employees see that their feedback is valued, not ignored. That visible, consistent progress is what drives lasting loyalty and a much healthier, more efficient workplace. That brings us to the end of our deep dive. We hope this gave you a really clear, strategic understanding of Employee Net Promoter Score as a crucial tool. A simple metric that provides deep, actionable insights when you pair it with smart segmentation and committed follow-through. Thank you so much for tuning into the SmartKeys podcast.
And if you're looking to dig into the full sector benchmarks or review the detailed breakdown of those 4 levers, we really encourage you to read the full source material we used for this.
That's right. The comprehensive article we discussed today, Employee NPS, Net Promoter Score, Tracking Workforce Sentiment in Real Time, is linked directly in the show notes for you to read. Subscribe and follow the SmartKeys podcast for more deep dives into the tools and trends shaping the future of work. We'll see you next time.